Here are the top stories for today, November 12, 2021. The vaccination of on-site and transportation workers against COVID-19 is now mandatory as the government doubles down on efforts to achieve population protection as more jab supplies pour into the country. The Department of Education is all set for the pilot run of face-to-face classes in selected schools next week. An assessment of other schools is ongoing after President Rodrigo Duterte gave the green light to hike the number of schools joining the measure. Doing business with care, Metro Manila mayors want workers in Tiangges and Bazaars to be fully vaccinated as these are seen to be hitting the streets again following the easing of curbs for the holiday season. And the Department of Foreign Affairs raises alert level 4 in Ethiopia amid a continued political unrest in the African nation. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Unvaccinated workers cannot be terminated, but they will be required to take the daily RT-PCR or antigen test. This developed after the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases approved several measures to ramp up the national COVID-19 vaccination drive. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque says all workers who are to be vaccinated during work hours shall not be considered absent. Meanwhile, all frontline and emergency services shall continue to assist all persons regardless of vaccination status.
Bilang pagsunod po sa direktiba ng Presidente at para tumaas ang demand ng COVID-19 vaccination, inaprubahan po ng inyong IATF ang mga sumusunod na measures na mag-take effect simula 1 po ng Disyembre ng taong ito. Kabilang dito ang pag-require ng mga establishmento at employer sa public at private sector sa mga lugar na may sapat na supply ng COVID-19 vaccine na magpapabakuna ng kanilang eligible employees na nasa on-site work. Sa mga eligible employees na hindi bakunado, maaaring hindi sila matanggal sa trabaho dahil lamang sa rason na hindi sila bakunado. Pero kinakailangan nilang mag-undergo ng regular RT-PCR testing or antigen test at their own expense. Kailangan fully vaccinated din ang eligible workers na nasa pampublikong transportasyon para magpatuloy ang kanilang operasyon. Maaari namang tanggihan ng public and private establishments ang pagpasok o pagbibigay serbisyo sa mga nananatiling hindi bakunado o sa mga partially vaccinated kahit na sila ay eligible naman for vaccination. Hindi kasama rito ang mga frontline at emergency services na tuloy-tuloy ang assistance sa lahat regardless of vaccination status.
COVID-19 alert level system will be implemented nationwide. According to President Rodrigo Duterte's Executive Order number 151, the nationwide alert level system will be done in 4 phases. The first phase covers the pilot areas where it is currently being implemented. Listed in the Phase 1 are Metro Manila, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Western Visayas, Central Visayas, Northern Mindanao, and Davao Region. Areas under Phase 2 are Ilocos Region, Eastern Visayas, and Soxargen. Areas under Phase 3 are Cagayan Valley, Bicol Region, and the Zamboanga Peninsula. And areas under Phase 4 are Cordillera Administrative Region, Mimaropa, Caraga, and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. The executive order states that the shift to Phase 2 may begin at any time after the effectivity of the order as may be determined by the IATF, but not later than the end of November 2021. The succeeding phases shall then commence every week until its full nationwide implementation. The current guidelines for the community quarantine in the country will still remain in effect in areas not placed under the alert level system. More schools are now being assessed for the pilot implementation of the face-to-face classes. This after President Rodrigo Duterte gave a go signal to increase the number of participating schools. The Department of Education, or Deped, says schools are being evaluated and assessed based on readiness and COVID risk level. From the latest transmittal of the Health Department, Deped says 484 out of the 638 passed their granular risk assessment as minimal or low risk Meanwhile, the 100 public schools named will proceed with their pilot face-to-face classes this coming Monday, November 15, and the 20 private schools a week after on November 22nd. The National Task Force and the National Vaccination Operations Center are hoping that the 3-day vaccination event would be considered a regular holiday. The National COVID-19 Vaccination Days, which will be held from November 29 to December 1, aims to vaccinate 15 million individuals. Dubbed as Bayanihan Bakunahan, the initiative invokes the Bayanihan spirit in encouraging healthcare professionals from various medical fields, such as doctors, nurses, dentists, pharmacists, medical technologists, and other medical volunteers to participate in the nationwide event. The government is targeting to mobilize 170,000 to 200,000 medical workers to serve as vaccinators during the 3-day national event. The NTF and the NVOC seek for the issuance of an executive order from Malacanang as well as a department circular from the Department of Health declaring the 3-day Bayanihan Bakunahan drive as a regular holiday. More than 100% of the target population in the National Capital Region have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, while 90.75% are now fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Metro Manila is among the priority regions that receive the bulk of vaccine supply, with more than 20 million doses deployed as of November 8. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. lauded the Metro Manila mayors for this another milestone in the country's vaccination program. He said the increasing output of the vaccination program has contributed to the continuous decline of COVID-19 cases in all areas nationwide. The Department of Justice, or DOJ, also concurred with President Rodrigo Duterte's position on employers' preference to vaccinated job applicants. Justice Secretary Bernardo Guevara said the president is correct. Employers have the prerogative to select whoever they wish to employ on the basis of their own standards. There is no employer-employee relationship at that point. However, Guevara said, the law presently prohibits making vaccination as a requirement for continued employment. Tiangges sellers are now required to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. This after the Metro Manila Council and the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority released a resolution establishing the unified standards and guidelines on the conduct of Christmas bazaars, Tiangges, and pop-up stores in the region. The resolution also requires all traders, salespersons, exhibitors, organizers, and other personnel of these establishments to be fully vaccinated. It says these seasonal businesses often come from different parts of the country, making contact tracing highly difficult. Another reason for the requirement was that bazaars, Tiangges, and pop-up stores were considered to have significantly contributed to a polio outbreak back in September 2019. The NCR is currently under Alert Level 2, which allows more businesses to resume operation, including seasonal markets. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 said Filipinos no longer have a reason not to get vaccinated as more COVID-19 vaccines continue to pour into the country. Last night, a total of 866,970 Pfizer vaccine doses arrived at the NAIA Terminal 3. Task Force Medical Consultant Dr. Maria Paz Corrales said the jabs will be used for the pediatric vaccination and will also be allotted for vaccination activities in the first quarter of 2022. Corrales said all vaccine brands such as Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, and Sputnik V will be deployed for the proposed national COVID-19 vaccination days. With sufficient stocks of vaccines at hand, she said the government is now doing everything to ensure that Filipinos get themselves vaccinated. She also hoped that everyone would participate in the vaccination program so that the country's economic recovery could start. Still to come, the Commission on Elections says the final list of candidates for next year's polls may be out by mid-December. And Filipinos in Ethiopia are ordered to evacuate as the Foreign Affairs Department raises Alert Level 4 in the African country. Details ahead. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Mga kabida, hindi pa rin po nawawala ang banta ng COVID-19. Kaya para masigurado natin ang inyong kaligtasan, hanapin po ang safety seal sticker sa kahit na anong lugar na inyong pupuntahan, mapamall man ito o kahit na anong establishmento. Ang safety seal po ay tanda ng isang establishmento ay sumusunod sa minimum public health standards ng gobyerno para maiwasan ang pagkalat ng COVID-19. Ating pong tatandaan, bida ang may disiplina, kaya #SafetySeal para sa ligtas na pamilya at ligtas na bayan.
Mga kabida, hindi pa rin nawawala ang banta ng COVID-19. Upang masiguro ang kaligtasan ninyo at ng inyong pamilya, hanapin ang safety seal sticker sa inyong pupuntahan. Mapamall man ito, kainan, pasyalan o kahit anong business establishment. Ang safety seal ay tanda ng isang establishmento ay sumusunod sa minimum public health standards ng gobyerno para maiwasan ang pagkalat ng COVID-19. Ating tandaan, bida ang may disiplina. #SafetySeal para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bayan.
An overseas Filipino worker is finally coming home to her family in Cebu amid the pandemic with the help of the government's Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program. Marita Muahe has the story.
A former overseas Filipino worker expressed hope for a better life as she thanked the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program for helping them go back to the province. Leonida Sevillano decided to leave Manila for good and return to her home province in Bantayan Island in Cebu together with her 2 children and 3 siblings. Sevillano said that the BP2 program is instrumental for her decision to just stay in the country and focus on taking care of her children instead of going back abroad to take care of other people's kids. With the help that the government is giving them through the BP2 program, Sevillano is hopeful that they will have a better life back in the province as she personally takes care of her 10 and 5-year-old children.
Ito, yung pag-apply ko po sa Balik Probinsya program ay nakakatulong po sa amin ng malaki ng pamilya ko kasi sa halip na ako po ay babalik sa abroad, ipopokus ko na lang po yung pag-aalaga ko sa kanila instead na mag-alaga ko sa ibang bata.
She expressed gratitude to the national government as well as the government agencies and the people behind the BP2 program as they can help so many people, especially families. Sevillano said that she worked as a house helper in Kuwait and Dubai for a total of 5 years. In 2017, she returned to the country when her contract expired. She said that they were living fine in the city until the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country. Aside from her children, Sevillano also supports her siblings as they all live together in one house. During the pandemic, their work and livelihood were affected. The worst experience was when one of her children got sick and she had no other option but to tell her former employee abroad and ask for help. Being a Muslim, Sevillano said that she is thankful that her Muslim employees help them even if she no longer works for them.
Alhamdulillah, may share ko lang po, nung time po na nagipit kami na nagkasakit yung anak ko, yung amo ko po nagbibigay po sa amin ng tulong. Bis kahit hindi po siya Pilipino, iba po siyang lahi, pero nagpapadala po siya sa amin. Kasi sa Islam po kasi hindi po tinitingnan kung anong lahi ka, mayaman ka man o mahirap. As long as may willing kang tumulong, tutulungan po talaga.
However, even if the salary abroad is bigger, Sevillano said that taking care of your own children has no monetary value. With the BP2 program, she is given the exact opportunity to stay with her children, ditching the idea of leaving them to work abroad.
Napag-isipan ko kasi dati na yung years na nalayo po ko sa anak ko, mas sapat na po yun. Kasi, oo, makakita nga kami ng pera sa ibang bansa, pero yung pag-aalaga po sa anak, hindi po siya mapapantayan.
When they arrive in Cebu, she said that they will temporarily stay with their uncle as they wait for the housing program by their local government unit, to which she has already applied. Sevillano promised that she will give her best to grow whatever help is given them by the BP2 program. She is excited to be going back to her home province after 10 long years.
Yes po, yun po, kung may tutulong man po sila sa aming tulong sa pag-abutihan po talaga namin na paunlarin pa po yun para po hindi na kami maghirap. Yun po yung plano namin. Kumbaga yung tulong po na financial ang binigay sa amin, paano po namin ang negosyo yun.
The BP2 is a program of the national government that aims to address Metro Manila congestion by encouraging people, especially informal settlers, to return to their home provinces and assist them during the entire process. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muaje.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines has a new AFP chief in the person of Philippine Army Commander Lieutenant General Andres Centino. Centino has been appointed by President Rodrigo Duterte in the AFP top post, succeeding AFP Chief of Staff Jose Faustino Jr. Faustino just retired after serving for 4 months as AFP Chief of Staff. Just like the newly appointed PNP Chief General Leonardo Carlos, Faustino is also part of the PMA's Maringal class of 1988. The final list of candidates for the May 9, 2022 elections may be out by mid-December. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez said that after the Monday's deadline for the withdrawal and substitution, the COMELEC will start cracking down on the list so that all remains are those who really want to run for office and expel those who are considered nuisance bets. Jimenez reported that cases have already been filed over 70 nuisance aspirants. Meanwhile, COMELEC is planning to start the debates for presidential and vice presidential candidates as early as January 2022. Jimenez said they are looking to hold 1 primary debate, 3 presidential and 3 vice presidential debates. He said the main debates would be spread out throughout the campaign period, February, March, and April. The pre-construction works for the Metro Manila Subway Project, or MMSP, at Camp Aguinaldo have officially begun with a groundbreaking ceremony on Thursday. The ceremony marked the beginning of the construction of housing units, repair and rehabilitation of Warehouse Number 1 and Supply Unit, General Headquarters and Headquarters Service Command, and construction of the medical gas and manifold vacuum plant housing at Camp Aguinaldo. These structures and facilities are meant to replace or improve those affected by the construction of the Katipunan Station. Some stations of the Metro Manila subway system will rise on government property such as Camp Aguinaldo to ensure that it is accessible to the riding public. The MMSP is a 33.1-kilometer underground rail system traversing Ugong, Valenzuela to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 3. It aims to accommodate up to 370,000 passengers per day by first year of its operation. More than 40 million Filipinos have completed the Step 2 registration process for acquiring the PhilSys National ID amid the COVID-19 pandemic. In a statement, the Philippine Statistics Authority said about 40.2 million individuals have done their biometric capture as of October 31 following the Step 1 PhilSys process via the PhilSys registration website. Meanwhile, PSA Undersecretary Dennis Mapa assured that the PhilSys lead implementing agency would continue to sustain its gains in the promotion of financial inclusivity. MAPA urged more Filipinos to avail themselves of the national ID for free and use their PhilIDs to access various services, including the availing of a bank account with the Land Bank of the Philippines. Crisis Alert Level 4 or mandatory evacuation has been raised in Ethiopia due to continued and intensifying conflict in the African nation. The Department of Foreign Affairs on Thursday night advised against traveling to the Eastern African nation. It has asked Filipinos residing there to restrict non-essential movements, avoid public places, and immediately prepare for evacuation. As of December 2020, the DFA said there are around 800 Filipinos in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian government has been battling forces from Tigray since November last year after the Tigray People's Liberation Front attacked a federal army base in the region. Reports from the United Nations stated the war has left thousands dead and pushed about 400,000 people into famine-like conditions. Filipinos in Ethiopia who need assistance may contact the Philippine Embassy in Cairo, Egypt, or the Philippine Honorary Consul in Addis Ababa. The Department of Budget and Management, together with the Department of the Interior and Local Government and the Presidential Communications Operations Office, launched the Angat Lokal PH Facebook page. The page is the official social media platform disseminating updates and information on the Mandanas-Garcia Supreme Court ruling of 2019 and Executive Order number 138 signed by President Rodrigo Duterte on June 1st, 2021. The EO tackles full devolution or the transfer of certain functions in delivering basic services from national government agencies to local government units. LGUs will see an increase in their portion of the national taxes beginning in 2022 as stated in EO number 138 and in accordance with the Mandanas ruling. The increase would enable LGUs to better serve their constituents by providing basic services and implementing devolved programs and projects. More stories from the newsroom. The senators moved to cut the budget of the government's anti-insurgency task force is not sitting well with the country's defense chief. And keeping the tradition alive, Catholics are urged to put up Advent wreaths in their homes. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom. A youth group in Caraga region on Thursday urged Vice President Leni Robredo to undergo immersion in the grassroots to see the impact of the projects of the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict. Propelling our inherited nation through our youth, or Pointy issued the challenge after Robredo said she would abolish the NTF-LCAC if elected to the country's highest post. Board of Trustees member Girly Tiambong said that the NTF-LCAC has shielded the youth and indigenous peoples from the influence of the communist New People's Army. She said they were able to forge partnerships with different agencies of the government and provide even those unreachable due to heavy communist rebel presence with services and programs. She also emphasized that the NTF-LCAC has given IP communities a new perspective of government services. Pointy Incorporated is a nationwide youth organization that promotes peace and engages government agencies in facilitating programs and services to the youth. The decision of senators to cut down the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflicts proposal budget shows their lack of appreciation of the hardships being experienced by those living in remote communities. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana made the statement after the Senate slashed the budget of the NTF-LCAC's Barangay Development Project for 2022 from 28.12 billion pesos to just 4 billion. Lorenzana said the act was supposed to punish the NTF, but it is the poor people who would have benefited from the BDP that will suffer. The NTF-LCAC budget was supposed to be spent for BDP core projects like farm-to-market roads, school buildings, water and sanitation systems, livelihood programs, and health stations. Meanwhile, Lorenzana said Vice President Leni Robredo's call to abolish the NTF-LCAC over concerns that it could be used to launch a campaign similar to Oplan Tokhang is misplaced. Lorenzana also said the NTF-LCAC is already implementing a whole-of-nation approach to address the root causes of insurgency. After a nearly 2-year closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic, at least 26 cinemas in various malls in Taguig City are set to reopen soon. Mayor Lino Cayetano said the cinemas were issued safety seals by the Taguig Safe City Task Force after passing a thorough inspection. Cayetano noted that cinemas were not the only ones hardly hit by the pandemic, but as well as the local film industry as a whole, as quarantine restrictions resulted in fewer films being produced. He said going back to the cinemas will increase the confidence of producers and other stakeholders in the industry's future. Following the guidelines of the Interagency Task Force, cinemas and movie houses will be allowed a maximum of 50% indoor capacity for fully vaccinated adults and minors even if unvaccinated, and a 70% capacity for outdoor areas during Alert Level 2. As the country prepares to celebrate Christmas, the Catholic Church reminded the faithful to put up an Advent wreath in their houses as a reminder of the holiday season. Davao Archbishop Romulo Vallas on Thursday also encouraged parishes to promote the tradition of putting up wreaths and praying in celebration of the days of Advent. Vallas also asked lay and youth leaders to urge the families to help start the tradition in homes in remembrance of the eternity of God and life in Jesus Christ. The Advent wreath is a symbol of the season, with a candle lit in each of the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas. Advent this year will start on November 28. The Philippine Sports Commission will celebrate World Kindness Day with a special episode in the agency's Rise Up, Shape Up web series on Saturday, November 13. PSC Commissioner Celia Kiram said, despite its competitive nature, sports has a side that shows kindness. The commissioner cited players who help pick up opponents when they fall, or opposing teams congratulating each other after a tough match as good examples. Outside of the field, athletes exercise kindness by giving back to their communities. This special episode will have wellness advocate and book author Grace Eliazar to speak about the value of kindness in building better connections. She will be joined by the Chief of the Army's Operations Research Center, Colonel Harold Cabunok, who will share insights on how kindness is practiced in sports. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The vaccination of on-site and transportation workers against COVID-19 is now mandatory as the government doubles down on efforts to achieve population protection as more jab supplies pour into the country. The Department of Education is all set for the pilot run of face-to-face classes in selected schools next week. An assessment of other schools is ongoing after President Rodrigo Duterte gave the green light to hike the number of schools joining the measure. Doing business with care, Metro Manila mayors want workers in Tiangges and Bazaars to be fully vaccinated as these are seen to be hitting the streets again following the easing of curbs for the holiday season. And the Department of Foreign Affairs raises alert level 4 in Ethiopia amid a continued political unrest in the African nation. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC13. And it is 43 more days before Christmas. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, stay safe, happy weekend, everyone.